When we think about the meaning of life, that's a big subject. And it is something that a lot of people have different ideas about. And men begin to have their ideas about it. And I just want to kind of look at one, Viktor Frankl. He was a Jewish psychotherapist. He was in Vienna, went to the school of Vienna like Freud did. Freud admired him when Victor was just a teenage boy. He always remembered him. But he wrote a book in the 40s, right after he came out of the Jewish concentration camps. He survived. And he wrote a book entitled The Man's Search for Meaning. His idea for meaning is that you look beyond yourself. That's how he survived. He thought about his parents. He thought about people beside himself when he was going through the difficulties he went through. And the people that survived had a purpose, had a meaning that was beyond their circumstances. And that was kind of his theme in his life. He helped a lot of people to help them see that, do you have a purpose? And he had to realize, do I have a purpose after I get out of the concentration camp? Because he might as well just die if he didn't. But he knew that it was there, and he saw it in helping others. He had somebody else to think about besides himself. And that became his meaning in life. Others have said that when we think about the meaning of life, Dalai Lama, he says, be happy and useful. That's a kind of a two-pronged thing that kind of covers it all, doesn't it? Why be useful if you're not happy? Why be happy if you're not useful? You're going to be helping people. You're going to be useful, not only to yourself, but to others. And all the time you're happy. When you're happy and you're productive, you can't get it better than that in life, according to the Dalai Lama. Others say there's really no meaning. But some have said, like Pablo Picasso, the meaning of his life is found that you find your gift. And then the purpose of life is to give it away. Easy for him to say, isn't it? He had a gift. One painting is just sold last year for $106.5 million. Easy for him to say, let's just give it away. He's no longer here to collect those royalties, but I'm sure his foundation, whatever he has, is. But he is talented. And that, from his perspective, there's the altruistic type of view that I'll just give it away. I've got a gift, and I'll give it away. Read my paintings in a museum somewhere. And some say there's just no meaning, that if you find meaning, it's really, the fact you're living is meaning enough. Now make something out of it. Well, we could put all sorts of different views about that. But I want us, as God's people, could you crystallize into one sentence the meaning of life from the perspective of God's Word? With this lesson, and Lord willing, the lesson tonight, we'll be able to do that in one sentence. We're going to look at the first part this morning. And we're going to focus on the book of Ecclesiastes, because we begin to say, well, I need to be finding the meaning of life. What is the meaning? I need to be finding the meaning of life. And so we began to search for that meaning. And I want us to see how the book of Ecclesiastes unfolds for us to help us understand that. First of all, when we think about finding the meaning of life, let's just start with happiness and mirth. Mirth will be those occasions that makes you happy. It may be recreational things, may be parties, it may be group outings, whatever is something that is producing happiness, we'll call it mirth. And so you're involved in happiness and mirth. And Solomon in Ecclesiastes, the 2nd chapter and verse 1 through 11, he was one that says, you know what, I'm going to find the meaning of life. He didn't call it that. I'm going to find the purpose of living. He didn't call it that. But he lays down a detailed situation about how he went through various doors of life. to really find what is life all about under the sun. In chapter 2 and verse 1, I said in my heart, I will prove thee with mirth, therefore enjoy pleasure. And behold, this also was vanity. And he begins to talk about how that took place. He built gardens, he built parks, he grew trees, he had water places to water those trees, he had men servants, he had maid servants, he heard the best in the music. He had gold and silver, anything and everything to make you happy. But the question of Ecclesiastes is, will your meaning, if that becomes your meaning of happy and have mirth and just enjoy the present life, will your meaning become fleeting? Because see, next week you want to hear the maidservant sing another song. If they sing the same song, you might get bored. And the monotony or the fleeting of that it just goes away, you have to keep on bringing things that bring pleasure to you. Could it be that your meaning becomes fleeting as he opens up the chapter to talk about the way the weather works on the planet? That it goes left to right. The rain comes down. The sleet comes down. The snow comes down. Fills up the rivers, but nothing's ever filled. The sea's never filled. It just keeps cycling and cycling and cycling. And in this chapter, one generation comes, another generation goes, but the earth stays. The earth stays, and you're gone. But in the meantime, all these things keep coming over and over and over again. Doesn't the pleasures get monotonous as well? Is that what you want as a meaning of life? Ecclesiastes has warned us about that. Solomon opened that door. He walked in. He experienced probably more than we could ever experience of what bringing us joy would be. And it was fleeting, vanity. There was no substance to that. A lot of times it can come by, it can go away, and I've got to keep replenishing it with more and more joy, or it will become so monotonous that maybe I chose the wrong meaning of life. What about wisdom? What about wisdom? Ecclesiastes 1, 17, 18, I applied my heart to know wisdom. And to know madness and folly, I perceived that this was also striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much grief. And he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. Question. Will your meaning make you feel sad? The more you know about things, the more you see things that make you sad. When you're a young little kid, everything's great. You're being taken care of, you're being fed, and you don't have to worry about anything in life. You don't know much, but boy, you're happy. But you grow older, you learn more, and then you just apply yourself to know all sorts of things. You know why presidents, they age so much? The pressure, but they know a lot of stuff that drives them crazy and makes them stay up at night. We don't know what's going on. The more you know, if you want to know wisdom, will it make you feel sad, or maybe it will make you feel superior? I'm smarter than the other guy. Ecclesiastes, the 2nd chapter, verses 14 through 16. I saw a man's eyes are in his head. The wise man's eyes are in his head, and the fool walketh in darkness. Oh, he walks in darkness. I see all around me. I know what's going on. And yet I perceive that one event happeneth to them all. I said in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so will it happen even to me, the wise guy. And why was I then more wise? Why did I make that my meaning in life? It has its limits, doesn't it? Will it make you feel superior? God has something that will wake you up to that. It's called death. You will die like a fool. And what he says, you will soon be forgotten just like the fool. Death is the equalizer. Now, you can have wisdom. It'll increase your sadness. And if you ever feel superior to the fool, you'll all be together one day. What then? Well, maybe I want to be successful in my own business. You know, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. And I think the meaning in life is I've got an idea, I've got a plan, I have a business model. It's going to be very successful. And I think my meaning of life is to pursue that. And that will be, and if I'm successful in that, that will be a good meaning for me in life. If I can accomplish that and I retire and my business is so wonderful, and they'll be saying my name a long time. Well, the wise man wants us to know, will your meaning survive circumstances? Are things even beyond your control? Ecclesiastes 2, verse 18. I hated all my labor wherein I labored under the sun, seeing I must leave it unto the man that shall be after me. The man who knoweth whether the man be a wise man or a fool, yet he'll have rule over all my labor, which I labored, wherein I showed myself to be wise under the sun. I put everything into it, and with wisdom I had a profitable business. But then I got cancer and I died. What then? Something happened beyond your control. It's called death. What then? Family hasn't been too interested in that business. They'll probably sell it. Or if they want to run it, they haven't shown much interest, they'll probably go bankrupt. And he's showing this vanity. It brings sorrow to know that he has to leave it to somebody else to manage. And it was something out of your control. Did you make plans for your true meaning in life? If that's it, it may be not that you've died. That's going to be something. But wonder before your death, it was burned to the ground because of a riot in the streets of the town you lived in. You spent all your life making up that business. Out of your control. Maybe it's because the government shut you down because you're not essential to open your doors. And you never planned. When you opened your restaurant and you put 45 years of work into that, that's the family name. And all of a sudden it goes down because of circumstances you cannot control. And you're out of business. What about your meaning in life? Make money. Money's not the problem. The love of money is the root of all evil, but what you really love, will it ever satisfy you? That's the question. Ecclesiastes addresses it. In Ecclesiastes 5, verse 10 through 12, he says, he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver. And he that loveth abundance with increase, this also is vanity. Why? Because you'll always want more and more. It never satisfies you. Be careful if the meaning of your life is something you love, because it may turn and eat you alive before the end. And money is the very thing. You never get enough of it. You love it. That becomes your God. Covetousness. But how many people make their children their God? How many people say, I love my children. That's the most important thing in my life. And you put all of your energy, you put all of your emotion, and that becomes your goal in life. I'm going to have those children, I'm going to raise them up. And you raise them up and they go their way. They don't honor you. Be careful what you love. And when that becomes your obsession in life, your children, your wife, your husband, if you put all of your energy, that's my wife. What happens when your wife dies? And all you got left is nothing, because that's where your love was shown. That's where you put your energy. That was the meaning of your life, your wife, your husband. Should that be your meaning? To a lot of people it is. And they live long enough to feel so lonely and so depressed, even when beyond the natural stages of being depressed and sad because you lose a loved one. If that becomes your love, be careful where you place your love for your meaning in life. One thing about it, we're looking at something that we can have, and those, like Victor said, it was look beyond yourself. A lot of this stuff is about me. And Ecclesiastes indeed addresses that. We need to find the meaning of life. And one of the things we need to do is look beyond yourself for your meaning. These are all about what I have, what I love. We got to look beyond ourselves, and that part is true from the book of Ecclesiastes. Did you realize that God has always been there in Ecclesiastes? We don't see it until Ecclesiastes 1, 24 through 26. When, I say chapter 1, 24 through 20, I'm chapter 2, 24 through 26. When he says, there is nothing better for a man to do that he should eat and drink and make his soul enjoy good in his labor. You got labor, you got business taken care of, you got joy, you got happiness, you got all these things. What's in it? What's the context of that? He said, this I saw that it is from the hand of God. All of a sudden, God's mentioned. Oh, he's not mentioned till chapter 12, when we find out the meaning of life is to fear God. It's not, I'm going to discover God because I'm looking out under the sun and I don't know what's out there, but I realize I go this way, be wise, I want to be rich, and it doesn't satisfy me. And I'm still looking, and I don't find it till chapter 12. Look what you got going in chapter 2. That the reason you can enjoy things, not making those things your God, but to enjoy them, enjoy the fruits of your labor, not that your labor is your God, is because it's from the hand of God. For who can eat or who can have enjoyment more than I, Solomon says. For to the man that pleaseth him, God giveth him wisdom and knowledge and joy. I thought that's what I wanted in my life. That's the wisdom I'm looking for. Don't make it your God. You'll be disappointed. But it is God who gives that. But to the sinner he giveth travail to gather and to heap up, that he may give it to them that pleaseth God. Back to Ecclesiastes 5, 8 through 10. If you don't use it, it's going to be given to others. And there's the vanity, there's the sorrow that comes from that. But it is indeed from the hand of God. Look at chapter 3, verse 12 and 13. I know there's nothing better for them to rejoice and do good so long as they live. And also that every man should eat, drink, and enjoy good in all his labor. This is the gift of God. From the hand of God comes the gift of God. Chapter 5, 18 through 20. Behold, that which I've seen to be good and comely is for one to eat and drink and enjoy the good of all of his labor, wherein he laboreth under the sun, all the days of his life, which God hath given him, for this is his portion. God has given him his portion. This is what you'll get out of life from your labor. Enjoy it. In chapter 9 and verse 7, go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God hath already accepted thy works. Why? You planted the vine. Now you've got grapes. Drink your wine. You planted a seed for grain. God's received that and blessed you because you got bread now. Eat it with joy. God's already received your labor. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's the message. But God has been in Ecclesiastes all along. All along. You don't find discover because I'm going to go through life and I'm finally going to end up there. He started there and tells you why you better end up with him. Because we got wisdom, we've got knowledge, we've got labor, we got joy. We got all the things that people focus on. That's my meaning in life. And that's not it. It shouldn't be it. Because God's always been in the picture. Even in the book of Ecclesiastes. We see it in chapter 3. When he says, I looked around and I saw in chapter 3, verse 16 and 18, moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, that wickedness was there. And in the place of righteousness, that wickedness was there. And I said in my heart, God will judge. He doesn't doubt God being there. It helps him make meaning out of life because he's there. And not just there. He's going to judge one day. Solomon knows that. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous, judging, yes, and the wicked. There's a time there for every purpose and for every work. Injustice will not go unpunished. And what happens is that we think sometimes injustice is invincible. There's a whole agenda among people today of injustice in our country over slavery. A lot of it, I think, is overblown, but it's a way of getting their point across, of getting what they think they deserve. People deserve who've been minorities, and that is a very difficult thing. But when I look at God's Word, and I may see, look, I will never be treated with justice. What if that happens? That doesn't become your God. You begin to live with your circumstances. You do look beyond yourself, but it's not, well, I've got to find my purpose. No, we're going to find our purpose that allows you to live beyond yourself. And it's God. And even when injustice seems invincible, it cannot be overcome. I've tried and tried and tried. We have this political agenda and it's not working. If that happens, if that's true, don't give up on the meaning of life. Because God will reward the righteous. He will judge the righteous. And since they're righteous, there's reward. But He also will judge the wicked. They'll not get by with injustice. Every murder that's unsolved will be solved. Men will pay the penalty with eternal damnation for the sins that they committed here while in the body. You can count on it because God is always there, and He's always there watching, and one day He will judge. What God is doing in Ecclesiastes, He said, I'm going to tell you who's in the room. He's always been there. And while these other pursuits will not be good enough, we've got better resources with God to find out the meaning of life. What is it? We fear God and we keep His commandments. We come to Ecclesiastes 12, 13, and 14. This is the end of the matter. All have been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments. So my question is, if that's going to be your meaning, that starts a pretty good sentence, first sentence. Fear God and keep His commandments. There's that reverence, there's that piety, there's recognizing God, He will judge, recognizing God, He gives me my portion, there's God providing for me, He is behind those things, and I am making Him my outward meaning in life. It starts with God. If you do that, then you'll keep His commandments. That's the side that will follow. Now my question is, why does He say that? It's the truth, but He gives you some reasons. Number one, because this is the whole of man. He won't parcel you up and say, well, I'll probably need another purpose in life. You know, like Picasso, meaning of life is to find your given. The purpose of life is to give it away. No, purpose and meaning is all summed up. And what happens is that when I make the right choice, God, from the perspective of Ecclesiastes, that's the whole of man. Now we put duty because I have a responsibility to that. That is the whole of man. There's not a place in your being that God cannot satisfy, that God cannot reach, and God cannot bless, that allows you free to be useful and happy and giving in your life. There is indeed responsibility that we're talking about. Our Jewish therapist said that he wishes, now he was a Jew, and he was thinking about America, and he wishes that, well, we have liberty and we have freedom, and he wishes would be that Statue of Liberty on the East Coast. But he wished there would be a statue of responsibility on the West Coast. I thought about that. Accountability, responsibility. You can be free. You can walk in the door and wisdom's going to be my God. God will allow you to walk through it. There's a liberty, but also holding us together would be there is responsibility, accountability, and God provides that. This is the whole of man. It's your duty. Because I'm God. Fear Him, reverence Him, and keep His commandments. Secondly, God will bring every work into judgment. See, there's accountability taking place. There's your statute of responsibility. I don't know who in France is going to make that one, if ever. But I think he has a good point. And what happens is that God always, He allows us the freedom to choose and make what's your meaning in life. But He said, I'm in the room. And I am the one that can bring the wonderful blessings to your life if you choose me. Because there's a responsibility. Everything you thought you hid from everybody else, you're going to be a fool in the judgment. Be very foolish. Because here, it'll bring every hidden thing, whether it be good. You forgot you did those things. Didn't know it was that much good. But all it was serving you, God, and you made me useful to somebody. It's a pretty good way to live life. And one day, you'll be reminded of the goods you forgot, but also the hidden things will bring forth evil. I think He's given this will fill your life. You have responsibilities and there will be accountability. And all of that is summed up with God. Fear God and keep His commandments. Now, let's drive this home to you and me as Ecclesiastes does. Solomon was not looking out there and wondering if he can find God. He's got God going through it all the time. God's going to judge. I said, Mark, God will judge. He wasn't searching for God. But you know who might be? Children. Your sons. Your daughters. And this is what we can teach them. Because he says, young man, that's who he's addressing. And that young man may not know God as he should. He might need to be taught that you better be searching for God. And he sums up in chapter 11 and verse 9, rejoice, O young man, in thy youth. And let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thy heart in the sight of thine eyes. But accountability, responsibility, but know thou that for all these things God will bring thee to judgment. Enjoy your youth, because you're not going to be young long. Enjoy your youth, young man. Walk in the ways that you want to as a young man. Enjoy every facet of that. But know this, accountability, because there is a God. And you'll give account how you live. Just eliminate your sorrow. Therefore, remove sorrow from your heart. Put away evil from your flesh. For youth and the dawn of life are vanity. It means doesn't mean it's no good. It means it's fleeing by. So he says, remember your Creator, chapter 12, in the days of what? Your youth. Remember also thy Creator in the days of thy youth. Before the evil days come, that's when you get older, a lot more evil coming, a lot more knowledge, bring you sadness. I'll have no pleasure in them. Then he speaks about death, that equalizer the fool and the wise man. Soon to be forgotten. What then? God doesn't forget you. And when you make God your God, that becomes important. And who needs to know that? Young man, young girl, young woman, your little children need to learn that early. Because see, being young, you can have an opportunity to have that meaning. It will fit all facets of your existence. Chapter 12 and verse 12 leading up to verse 13. He says, furthermore, my son, who's he addressing? My son, be admonished. That means be warned. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. This is the end of the matter. All hath been heard. No, Daddy, I need to go read that book to find the meaning of life. No, you don't. Now, when you choose God, you don't. Now, if you don't choose God, you need to know how to get back your business together when COVID shut it down. Or what happens after your death? Will they carry on your name? What will they do? Or if you spend all your time being wise and you die, you leave your business behind and you leave all of your learning behind. No, you didn't do that. You made God, and it hits all of your being. It deals with life, and it takes care of death. You do not lose your meaning when you die. And all of the things that this life has to offer you, you will. You'll lose your money. You won't take it with you. I don't care how much you have. I don't care how you planned your funeral. You don't take it into the Hadean world. But you can enjoy it here. And it even takes you beyond death into the judgment. And just focusing on yourself and how I need to find the meaning from within me. You will be made to have grief when you do that. Meaning doesn't come from within, it comes from without. And God gives you the best way to have a meaning in life. Because your desires, what you love, things of this world, anything short of God will disappoint you in the end. And if not, with death, the judgment. And he said it's weariness to read all the books. He just helped us cut to the chase. And the chase is very short. Fear God, keep His commandments. Got him. He becomes my meaning in life. And finally, my son, anchored with meaning. You live daily with focused energy and joy. Notice this in Ecclesiastes 9. In verse 9, live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest, which God, He, the pronoun there, hath given unto thee under the sun, all the days of vanity, for this is thy portion in life, and in thy labor wherein thou laborest under the sun. Eat your bread, drink your wine, enjoy the fruits of your labor. You're a good farmer. God's blessed you. Now enjoy the fruits of your labor. And live with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of your life. That's what you get. That's your portion. She's not my God. I'm not her God. God's my God. But I will look to her needs. She will look to my needs. You enjoy every day with her and him. That's joy. That's how to live life. Some of you wait until the freeze is over. Maybe we'll do something together. instead of freeze together. Wait till COVID-19 gets over and we get back to normal. What's that going to look like? There's no way you go on a trip too much because accommodations over there is not any better than here. We'll just put that off. And days roll by and you're not together enjoying your days. That's not the way you ought to live. And whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all your might. Why? Because when you got me as the mean, I'll take you to the grave and beyond. Because there's no device, there's no knowledge, there's no wisdom in the grave where you're going. Oh, don't tell my son about that. Don't tell my little girl about that. Young men, young women, you need to know about death. You need to know about the grave. You know what that does? Every moment that you're conscious and you wake up every day, whether it's schoolwork, maybe it's looking on a computer screen, you give your best to that work. And you grow in that wisdom and that knowledge, and everything you do it with all your might. Why? Because God is my meaning in life. And that's how He wants me to live. And I'll realize that the fruits of my labor is what I enjoy. That's what I'm going to get out of the day. And I'll be okay with that. Learning doesn't become your God. Your business doesn't become your God. God tells you how to live life. I want to tell you something. When you got joy and you got wholesome relationships in the family and you got someone that wakes up every day, I am going to give it all I got today. And whatever I can do, you'll be happy. You'll be happy when you lay your head down at night and realize, well, I didn't do everything I wanted to, but the things I did, you can think about those things. Because God is your meaning in life. And He helps you live it. And I'll put Him up against anybody who's trying to find themselves. And they say, I will seek life, and it won't include God. Let's see the results. And let's see who has picked the right meaning in life when we look in the context of the grave and the judgment and eternity. And what really you get out of this life. He told you how to live. That's the first part of this meaning. We'll come back to tonight and look at a second part. But this was designed not for Solomon to say, hey, I found it. He's given his life, but he's trying to get the young people, young men, young women, to learn how to make that decision. And as you grow up, you're going to have to do that. Do it early. And parents, you can help them make the right choice. That everything they do in life, they will never outlive the meaning in life. Because the grave won't do it, eternity won't do it. It'll be the right choice because they put the meaning of life to an eternal, loving, all-wise God. And I hope you will do that. If you haven't done that and you're not a Christian, we encourage you, because Jesus Christ is the wisdom of God, Paul says. Why not put your life and serve Him as a Christian? Obey the gospel as we stand and as we sing.